Yesterday's interview with Sigma president Kazuto Yamaki caused a bit of a stir when he responded to questions about the big Sigma announcement, the RF announcement, saying, "I would like to think about what we can do, but it's difficult to say whether there's anything we can do right now." And fallout from that very statement generated a reply from Canon. And I'll get to that reply in just a moment. But the fallout from Sigma's statement yesterday had many of us, including myself, thinking, okay, great, all that stuff we heard about the lead up to the big Sigma announcement by the end of February turned out to be nothing but hogwash. There's nothing from Sigma indicating, teasing in any way whatsoever that any announcement is soon, that it could happen this month, next month, or even in 2024, let alone 2025. You see, Sony Alpha Rumors reported back in September that the Canon RF mount would be opened up, and it would happen by the end of the year. Canon Rumors in November went further, stating that a big Sigma announcement, as per a distributor, is going to happen before the end of February. And even we on this channel heard from multiple sources that attended Build Expo, other trade shows around the world, and these are trusted viewers that I talk to on a regular basis, some of them that even show up in the live streams, and they told me that they were talking to Sigma people at these trade shows and were told that, yeah, we're in discussions with Canon. But they wouldn't tell us anything further, and that was kind of strange. First of all, you're letting us know that you're talking with Canon, but you're not going to tell us anything further. Okay, so a lot of noise, something from Sony Alpha Rumors, which has been very correct in the last, very trusted, in fact, in the last 12 months. And Canon Rumors, and of course, from various sources, well, friends to this channel. But that Sigma statement really kind of had us shocked. But then, well, let's hear what Canon had to say in their own words. Tsuyoshi Takura, Senior Managing Executive Officer and Deputy Manager of Canon's Imaging Group, said that Canon is communicating with third-party manufacturers regarding RF mount lenses. But when pressed further said, there's no restrictions. No restrictions. That's a very interesting quote. But the interviewer pressed Takura-san a little bit further, and he said, communications with third-party manufacturers is deeper than it was in the early days, and revealed that they're proceeding with more active interactions than before. So that big Sigma announcement that's supposed to happen by the end of February, well, it's still not likely to happen, although we don't know. There could be something coming this week. But what's really interesting is that yesterday's video about what Sigma said did shake the rumor tree. It got Canon to finally get irritated enough by all the discussion, all those questions, all that conjecture, all that speculation going around in the marketplace, stuff being generated by, well, the fallout to Sony Alpha Rumors coverage, from Canon's coverage, from our coverage here, and other channels like Fro Knows and Tony Northrup. That's created such a buzz in the marketplace that Canon couldn't sit back and they had to respond. And what's really interesting is that Canon said, there are no restrictions. If there are no restrictions, then why don't we have lenses right now? Why hasn't Sigma announced anything? Well, the simple answer is there could be research and development. But the one thing that Canon did let on here is that, well, they're communicating with these third-party makers based on the RF mount. They're communicating with them, and that there are more interactions than there were before. So while there are no restrictions, according to Canon, apparently there needs to be a lot of, well, collaboration between Canon and these companies to be able to produce a compatible RF mount lens, or a line of compatible lenses. And that's probably what's taking time. This is good news, though. Communication with third-party manufacturers is deeper than it was in the early days. There are no restrictions. Canon is communicating regarding the RF mount. And this is all good stuff because, as we've seen with the EF mount, Canon doesn't spend an awful lot of research and development and targeting customers that are looking to purchase lenses from around $300 up to $1,500, whether it be for APS-C or full frame. And if you are buying a camera like the R50, the R100, the R7, or even the R10, well, you're looking at all those lenses that are available to you, and there aren't an awful lot of, well, powerful, fast, quality lenses. And if you look over at Sony's E-mount, you can see that if you're buying a ZV-E10 or any other camera that's more affordable, all the way up to the A7 IV, you've got a lot more options. You've got an awful lot more options. You can purchase, well, for example, let's pick on Sigma, for example. You can get the 150 to 600 millimeter. How about the 70 to 200 millimeter? Yep, you can get that as well. And the 35 millimeter f1.4, a fast and wide prime that's considerably cheaper than what you'll see from Canon for the 35 millimeter f1.2. And yes, I will admit, no doubt that lenses like Canon's 50 millimeter f1.2 have, well, much better sharpness. And when it comes to aberration, whether it be chromatic or otherwise, well, yes, Canon is going to perform better, but that performance, that level of quality is going to set you back an awful lot more. Anywhere from $2,200 all the way up to $2,900. And for the ordinary average photographer or filmmaker, somebody buying an R50, R7, R10, or even the R8 might look at a lot of these lenses and say, you know, this is just out of my price range. I can't even afford to dream of new lenses like the 24 to 105 f2.8 at $29.99. But Sigma, Tamron, Samyang, Viltrox, all these companies understand that, well, we want quality. We don't necessarily need that pro-level Sports Illustrated magazine cover type quality. That we don't need f1.2 that we could sell for f1.4 and a much reduced price point. And that's where Sigma and Tamron come in. When it came to the EF mount, Canon didn't produce a lot of lenses. But Canon is coming out with some unique lenses. For example, the RF 200 to 800 millimeter that I talked about last night in yesterday's video. It's not cheap, it's $18.99, but for a lens that can do 200 all the way up to 800 millimeter, with a pretty good focal range, that is, we don't see that anywhere else, and the aperture isn't all that bad either. It's certainly better than the 800 millimeter f11 because you were stuck at f11. And the 800 millimeter f5.6 is some $13,000. So for the rest of us, this is a terrific lens. If you're a birder, this is something to certainly aim towards. It's cheaper than the 100 to 500 millimeter, a terrific lens that has a faster aperture. But again, at $1,800, while a terrific lens, it's a little bit more expensive than the 150 to 600 millimeter. But I do want to talk about the difference between 600 and 800, and it's huge, and that's why you should consider the 200 to 800. This shot of the moon I took last night. It's a full moon, and this is shot with a 2x extender, doubling the range to 1,600 millimeters. And then I shot it in cropped mode, further taking it to about 2,500, 2,600 millimeters. And you can see that I'm getting up pretty close here. That's a pretty good close shot of the moon. And if you're interested in shooting the moon, I want to give you a few tips here. Whenever you're shooting the moon, when you're shooting it full on like this, it doesn't really give you an awful lot of detail. You'll get a lot more detail if the moon is anywhere from, let's say, 45 to 89% full. And the reason for that is lighting. You see, whenever you're shooting a corporate video, what you want to do is you want to take a subject, for example, me, and you want to have a key light here, a fill light here, basically lighting up the subject evenly. So there's no, well, drama. You're not creating any sort of cinematic feeling or mood. That's the opposite of what you want to do when you're shooting a corporate video. But when you're shooting a movie or TV show, quite often what you'll see is one side of a person's face is lit differently or unevenly compared to the other side. And that's normal. It creates tension, it creates drama, it creates excitement. And if we go back to the example of the moon, this was shot earlier this year, and look at the detail. Look at the contrast. And what you're seeing is the key light, which in this case is our star, the sun, is not hitting the moon full on, at least not from our viewpoint. And that creates shadows in the craters, creating more contrast, making it look a lot more detailed. So while the moon isn't full here, I like this video shot, which was captured just a couple of months ago, far better than I do of this full moon shot just last night. I really do like this lens, the 200 to 800 millimeter. It's a big lens, but not all that heavy. And just look at this. Trying to put my hand around this, you kind of get a sense of how big this is. And fully extended, I'm 6'1", and you can just see how big this is. It's a really massive lens. Now, I do want to talk about that 2,500 millimeters and using a 2x extender on it. If you're shooting wildlife, if I was shooting wildlife, I'd take off the 2x extender. I wouldn't want to shoot with this extender on, and I wouldn't shoot in cropped mode. For video, I would shoot 4K HQ, And for stills, I would just shoot full on, RAW and JPEG. And I wouldn't use a 2x extender at all. I wouldn't shoot in crop mode. You're just going to lose detail. And also, if you are going to be shooting wildlife with this lens for the very first time, instead of going all the way to 800, maybe go to 700, and you're going to find that the sharpness is pretty good. Just don't shoot in dawn or dusk, because that's where this lens is going to kind of fall apart. The strength of this lens is when you're shooting in the high sun. Remember, the aperture is f what? 6.3 to 9.0. So if you're going to be shooting at 200, great. But if you're shooting where you're going to want to shoot with this lens at 600, 700, 800, those low light situations, you're not going to resolve any detail. It's going to look pretty bad. But if you're shooting in when the sun's pretty high in the sky, you're going to get some pretty good results for this. And yeah, it'd be nice to be able to shoot in dawn or dusk, but if you want to be able to do that, well, you're going to have to spend a whole lot more. You're going to have to buy Canon's 800mm f5.6, which is going to set you back a whole lot more at around $13,000. And that's not a lens for the ordinary photographer or filmmaker. But this is where Sigma and Tamron come in. That 150 to 600mm is a terrific lens. I really do like Canon's 200 to 800. It's a little bit more at $18.99, but that extra reach you get from 600 to 800, and if you put an extender on, that range really just magnifies. But Sigma and Tamron, they provide us affordable lenses like the 150 to 600mm. You want super fast primes, f1.4 on the 35mm, much more affordable than the Canon version whenever it comes out. Give you an idea of what that's going to cost. Just look at the Canon RF 50mm f1.2 at around $2,200. It's not cheap, and neither will the Canon RF 35mm f1.2. And pros out there are saying, yes, but if you want quality, if you want the sharpness, if you want lack of aberration, chromatic or otherwise, well, that's where the L series glass comes in. And granted, Canon makes an awful lot of really good lenses. I've got the 50mm f1.2, the 150, sorry, not the 150, the 100 to 500mm, as well as the 100mm. I like their L series glass, the results they produce. But for the rest of us, the R50, the R100, R7, R10, or even getting into full frame, the R8. Not many of us can afford lenses priced well over $1,800. That range of between $300 and $1,500 is where most people buy their cameras and buy their lenses. And when they look at Sony and even Nikon and see a whole lot more options to them, it's really frustrating because there aren't a lot of high quality lenses unless you're willing to adapt Canon's old EF lenses. And those are starting to get old, and well, there aren't many new ones around anymore. So people are looking towards the RF mount saying, Canon, where's the really good primes, the fast and wide open primes that are more affordable? You sold me a camera, the R50, but I can't find any glass. So we should get more stuff coming out soon. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest news and rumors regarding lenses, then go ahead and subscribe and choose all notifications, or follow me on Twitter, or don't. It really doesn't matter. I'm just trying to provide you timely access to information on the RF mount and what's going to be happening. And if you're interested in purchasing any gear, lenses, camera bodies that I've talked about in this video, there's an awful lot of sales on right now. $29.99 for the Canon R5. That's right, the R5, $29.99, and there's some kit packages, one at B&H, one at Adorama, where you get a 128 gigabyte CF Express Type B card, as well as a card reader. That one's at Adorama. B&H has its own kit packages. Lenses, if you're looking to buy into the Sony system, there's a whole lot of deals on there right now, from cameras to lenses, Panasonic, Nikon, and of course, as I mentioned, Canon. But check it out. A lot of great deals on right now. And hopefully we'll have information on the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the Canon EOS R1 very soon. So a lot happening. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching, and for all your comments. I've got so many comments regarding the big Sigma announcement. People keep saying, February, what's happening? We're in February. Is anything happening? Are you leading us down the track? Is this just another lie? No, they're not lies. We're hearing information from multiple sources. I'm always happy to report where the sources are coming from. They're not always coming from me. In fact, most of the times there are not. But it's good to finally see Canon give us a little bit of information saying, yes, we're working on it. We're interacting with lens makers. We're meeting with them more regularly, and there are no restrictions. So at least Sony Alpha Rumors got that part right. They've opened up the mount. There are no restrictions. We're just waiting for that Canon Rumors part of where we get that big Sigma announcement, the big Tamron announcement. So it's Sunday. Happy Sunday. At least we've got a bit more happy news for you, good news for you. And I just want to tell you something a little bit funny. I shot this video once already and I forgot to power on the mic. I was so angry. I was so frustrated. I just lost a half an hour. And what time is it? It's 9. I'm going to try to get this out by 10. That gives me an hour to edit it. And I'm going to do my very best to do that. So you get it at 10 o'clock in time for a coffee or tea. So yeah, sorry about that. Anyhow, have yourself a great weekend, a great week, and we'll see you again soon.